Today on In the House, we examine how one would build cost-efficient yet thoughtfully designed homes on a large scale. We sit down with Nathan Siems, a senior architect with a design-build firm in Austin, Texas that specializes in 3D printed homes. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for listening. Nathan, good to meet you. Can you take a second and maybe tell us about yourself and what it is you do and just kind of give us a little history?
Yeah. How far back do you want me to go?
It's up to you, buddy. We got all the time.
Iowa. Oh my God.
Let's go.
Okay. Yeah. I was born in the great state of Iowa that no one's ever heard of before and usually confused with Idaho. I grew up there, went to college, went to undergrad at Iowa State University. It was like kind of torn when I went to university. I was like, okay, I'm interested in landscape architecture. I'm interested in structures engineering. I'm interested in architecture. Had to pick one, so chose landscape architecture. Came out of there with a bachelor's degree and then pretty much moved to Orange County, California right away from my first job. Worked there for 7-8 years. Went to the beach a lot.
Culture shock, moving from Iowa.
Oh, major culture shock. And I was like, okay, I hate Orange County. Like, I either want to get up to LA or San Francisco or down to San Diego. But the job was like, I don't know. The job was so good that I ended up staying there for 7 years. And I was telling myself, okay, spend 2 years here and then get the hell out. And it just didn't work. So, worked at a firm there. And then I just kind of got bored or tired of the work. Like, we were designing stuff for a lot of wealthy people, doing a lot of multifamily work, a lot of private residential work. And it was just like, you guys are so demanding and I'm kind of tired of you telling me what to do all the time. And I felt like I'd hit this ceiling in at my current job. And then the earthquake in Haiti happened in 2010. And my dad called me up and he said, hey, I'm going with some guys to Haiti to help build some houses. Do you want to come with me? And I was originally I was like, no, absolutely not. If I'm taking vacation, I'm going to Hawaii or I'm going, Haiti. Hell no. But I ended up going for 2 weeks and it changed my whole perspective on design and architecture and construction. For the first time I saw how people were really living in a third world country, what they didn't have. Mm. And it just blew my mind. And it made me inspired to want to use my design skills for people that typically can't afford them. Because it seems especially in America, it's the wealthy, it's the upper class that can afford design services, right? And the lower class never get to see any of that. So got back from that trip and then 6 months later ended up moving to Haiti to work for a nonprofit. And first year we were doing temporary housing. We put up 15,000 temporary shelters for people who have lost their homes.
What are you making those out of?
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. It didn't really make sense what we made them out of. Cause so it was 2x4 wood frame, 12x12 little boxes, but all of the wood, because there's no wood available in Haiti. Because they cut down all their trees years ago. So all of that wood was imported from the US. And then we put a tin roof on it and we wrapped it in this plastic. And it was supposed to last anywhere from minimum a year up to like 2, maybe 3 years. And then the homeowner was supposed to be able to, at some point, like take the tarp off and like make it more permanent, like add to it in a more permanent fashion. Yeah.
Did that happen?
Not very often.
Yeah.
I don't think it. One of the things that like really kind of hurt my feelings when I got there was that like we would give these out to different people that we thought needed them, and then like we would see like our stuff just being like carried away like on carts and by people and sold in pieces. So they would like we would help them assemble their house, and then they would disassemble it and then go sell like the wood to get money. So a lot of them didn't even live in there.
Wow.
Which is really sad. But that was kind of our fault, like because we didn't do the research on like what do they really want, right? Mm-hmm. Like if we would have given them something that they really
wanted. What's the need? Yeah.
Yeah, like no, I don't think anyone ever asked the question like, oh, what would you like to live in? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it be made of? So that happened, and then the second year I spent most of my time working on rebuilding this orphanage that had come down in the earthquake. So we completely redesigned it, built it, and I got to design and like be on site, like managing 100 Haitian workers building
That's a lot of people.
Building a structure in Haiti is wild.
Did you have to curate skill sets, or did people come knowing?
Oh, we had to teach them a lot. I mean, they have masons over there, but not to the same skill level that we have here, and their building methods are just a lot different. They don't like to use steel in their CMU block structures. So there's just a lot of stuff you have to keep track of when you're building something over there, because even like when you're paying for the concrete trucks to come deliver the concrete to your site to pour the slab, like a lot of the times they'll like stop off on the way to your place. They'll stop off at like 3 or 4 other places and like, sell part of your concrete away.
No way.
Yeah. And then like before they get
Where's
to
my
you,
yards?
Yeah. And so you just have to be on them like constantly. Otherwise, like
It's wild.
It's super wild. I ended up buying this motorcycle while I was there, and I was like driving back and forth between the job site and where I lived, which was like a 20-minute ride. Had never ridden a motorcycle before in my life until I like bought this dual sport, and it just felt like anything goes. I mean, whatever you can get away with, you can do there. No one's watching.
Yeah, there's no regulations.
No
there's
regulations.
No code. There's no inspections. It's just...
That's interesting from a life safety standpoint, like that for the erecting of whatever you're doing, and then at the end of the day, people are going to reside in this. Like, how much integral and care do you give to that?
Yeah. What was I going to say? I just lost my thought. It's funny. We showed up to this orphanage site, and once like the local community found out that we were going to rebuild the structure and like how big it was going to be, and like the nonprofit that was involved in that I was working for that was going to do this, all of a sudden they're like, well, you have to submit for a permit. And we were like, there's okay, what do you mean? What do you need to see?
What's
like,
the AHJ?
Like, what drawings do you need to see? And so like, well, we don't exactly know. Just give us some drawings and we'll review them and take a look at them. And you have to pay us this fee, by the way.
Right.
We're like,
there it is.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Cool. Well, of course. Come on, man.
I don't know what's the protocol.
Come on, man. Throw whatever you want.
So, obviously, what you were doing, incredible stuff, incredible subject matter. would you mind talking a bit about the budget side of it? How do you budget for that stuff? And I heard you say nonprofit. Like,
Yeah.
are you given a set amount and that's your budget for that project and you have to kind of just figure it out? Or how does all that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the nonprofit I worked for, don't judge me based on this. This is just, this has no reflection on me, and no offense to anyone who, yada, yada, yada. Boo! What?
Say it.
So the nonprofit that I worked for had a really, really close relationship with two particular news anchors at Fox News. And they were like big donors. One of them was actually Greta Van Susteren, who's no longer on Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
They both came down like repeatedly just to like see progress. And the weird thing is like our budget kept increasing because when Greta got involved, she gave like $1 million or $2 million to the project. And then she would put the project on Fox News. And then, like, we would continue to get more and more money coming in. So the project just, like, it kept growing and growing and growing. I think it's like a 10-acre site, and we were originally just going to build, like, a 30,000 square foot multi-purpose building, which would be dormitories, classrooms, cafeteria, outdoor kitchen, restrooms, all that stuff. It grew into, like, soccer fields, basketball courts, like a machine shop,
usable spaces. Yeah.
And so the budget was constantly moving, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it was pretty much impossible. It felt like there was really no budget. It felt like anything we wanted to do, they could find the money for. So we didn't.
It's incredible. So either you're in the poorest place possible and you have no budget, or you're in the richest place possible and there's no budget.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so many people, like, in the U.S. wanted to donate to it because they could say, you know, look what I did with my money. And
Sure, yeah.
PR value.
Yeah.
Charity.
It's all about marketing, really.
I'm sure afterwards, like, seeing kids playing soccer out in the field is just, like, it makes your heart melt. It's, like, a nice thing.
Man.
So were those amenities that were added, were they requested, or kind of to the very first point, was there any research done to go, hey, you guys should have a soccer field, so we'll just put one in, or?
I feel like I fought to get the community's input on things, but I felt like the headquarters of where the nonprofit was in North Carolina, there were people there that wanted to make decisions from there that were not willing to come down and see like the state of things in Haiti. And so you had a bit of that going on where people in North Carolina were like pulling some of the strings just because they wanted to have a say in the matter.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted to be able to have a little bit of their control and justify their job, right? So there was a lot of stuff that got built that probably would have been built differently if we would have really engaged the community. Like one of our first ideas was we were going to build a indoor kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so we showed some of the people that cook for the kids the plans for that, and they're like, "No, we won't use this. Like, you can build this, we won't use this." They don't cook inside. They only cook outside. They cook like with these big charcoal pits.
Okay.
And so you have to be outside to do that. But so there were little changes like that we had to make. Like once someone told us, "Hey, you dumb."
It's not customary.
You dumb Westerner. Like.
Which happens in most places Westerners go.
It happens in most places.
So then the net effect, positive or negative of all that?
On the Haitian community?
Yeah.
Gosh, that is, I think it's somewhere in the middle. That's a tough one. What?
What's the negative? Like, what's the cons? Why does the community not accept it?
I can come up with some cons. one of the things that happened was, so we employed 150 Haitian construction workers. We paid them a higher wage than like traditionally they would get, which you would think is like, oh, that's awesome, right? Like they're making good money. The problem is, once our job was over, it's not that easy to go out and get another job. So like your typical Haitian person might work for a year and then might not have work for a year, and then might find work in another year later, right? So you like get them used to having this income coming in, and so they're buying new things, they're spending money on things that they've never been able to buy before. And then the project's over, their income's gone. I think it had some negative impacts on the workers for sure.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
And it's 100% valid. It's human nature. Nobody wants to make less than they made before. You get comfortable with it. You get taken away. It doesn't matter how much you prepare somebody or how much you tell someone this is a short-term perk for you.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
That's interesting because that's definitely something I don't think you think about at the time. I remember watching a documentary, and this is kind of, a different subject, but I think it was about all these shoe manufacturers that, it's like you buy one pair of shoes and we'll donate a pair of shoes. So, all these people buy these shoes because it, gives them this feeling, well, I'm doing something good for whatever community. And come to find out, the people in that community who are trying to make shoes end up losing their livelihood.
Yeah.
Because there's such this, all this influx of basically free shoes.
Yeah.
And it actually ends up putting a lot of people out of business and ruins their livelihood.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting that you bring that up because, you think...
Even in good, there could be bad.
On the one hand, you really think you're doing something good, and it's like, is it better just to leave it alone and let them, I don't know. I don't know how you navigate.
It's your motives.
True.
And he alluded to it a little bit. If you've got political motives, that stuff looks good no matter what happens when you're gone.
That's true.
Today it looks good.
Yeah.
Tomorrow when you're gone and you're in office, that's someone else's problem.
That's true.
So similar to what you were just talking about, like that happened in Haiti after the earthquake, when like people started like donating rice, importing rice into Haiti because they were trying to help feed people, and that put a lot of the rice farmers and the rice sellers out of business, like the Haitians.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of them lost their jobs, which is just terrible. But I can think of more cons. So those kids that got to live in that, or that are still growing up in that orphanage, are treated like royalty, like compared to other orphanages. Like it's just such a luxury orphanage compared to what is typical in Haiti. And on top of that, you have like volunteer teams from the West coming in like every couple of weeks, because that's a marketing tool to continue to get people to donate money to the orphanage. So you have people coming in every couple of weeks. Those kids like form temporary bonds with those Westerners that come in, and then the Westerners leave. Then more come in. They form more. It's just it's a weird setup. So I would be concerned about the health and welfare, like long term, of those kids, like just what they're exposed to. And
that's pretty wild. I mean, it kind of begs the question, is it better to help? I mean, I think for the most part, people's motives are pure. Like the people who donate to these causes really believe they're doing something good.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But how do you...
It's got to be a Jane Jacobs approach. It has to be grassroots. You have to define the need and then you have to understand the problem and then address the problem as it needs to be fixed, not slapstick Americans showing up. Yeah.
I'm still trying to answer that question. I don't know. Like when I'd say the first 5 years being back from Haiti, my thought was, I don't think we should have done that. Like, been over there at all.
I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of with that line of thinking because I also look at, when something tragic happens in America, do we get people from these other countries donating and coming to help rebuild and all this other stuff?
Some do, the affluent ones, the ones that's a tough question because people give to those in need.
Right.
Don't necessarily give to the U.S. if there's if it was a countrywide catastrophe, maybe.
Okay, but let's say after 9/11, some major catastrophe that the whole world stopped that day and was glued to the TV. And I mean, that was a very tragic time in American history. And, did we see a lot of people from around the globe coming to help out and rebuild and help people? Maybe so,
I think we did.
but maybe not to the same extent. And so it kind of begs the question, is it better just to let them handle it on their own and rebuild and kind of pull themselves up by their bootstraps and figure it out, or what? I mean,
it comes down to some fundamental questions. And I think probably the first one, and I'm going to use an analogy, is how many times do you want to rebuild New Orleans after it gets flooded from a hurricane? Okay, at what point are we fighting something that's just dumb? Right?
You're right.
Is it smart to live in Haiti? Right? Is that something that should be done in general? Are there enough resources? Is the population right? Those are the first things.
True.
And then I think Mark's totally right. Ask them, what do you need? Do an analysis. And it's not, you guys don't have any food? Pizza Hut. Let's get a pizza over here and we fix the problem.
But why don't we do that? That seems so simple. Why not, when somebody's...
We have a hard time listening.
Okay, but if somebody loses a loved one, do you usually, what do you need? Anything you need, you let me know and I'll facilitate that. Why don't we do the same thing in that scenario where if there's a horrible earthquake, somebody says, what are your needs? What can we help you with specifically? And then facilitate those exact needs. And we don't go...
2 weeks later, everybody's forgotten.
Okay, well, that happens anyway.
To everything.
Oh, I get that. But, I mean, that happens regardless. I mean, who cares? The news is going to, they're going to move on to whatever the next hot topic is. So, I mean...
Yeah. I'm going to punt because this beautiful man I met in graduate school. So, you went from landscape architecture and you went to architecture. What happened there? So...
You mean, why did it switch?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the trip, the 2 years in Haiti had a lot to do with it. I think partially because, like, working in landscape, I felt like we were either working for a developer who already had a vision or an architect who already had a vision, and we were just, like, executing that vision. And so it didn't feel like there was as much creative license at least in, like, the realm of landscape that I was working in, and that was frustrating. And then being in Haiti and like seeing the housing need like really got me interested specifically in housing
In the dwelling.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Ever since my trip to Haiti, that's what I've been mostly, working on is housing. That's what I'm most interested in. So I was like, okay. And I kind of always like, I was kind of always debating or waffling in between landscape and like true architecture. And so I think it was just a matter of time a little bit too. But yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah. You wanted to get into it. Why'd you go to Houston? What university?
Why'd I go to Houston? Well, when I came back from Haiti, I landed in Texas.
Yeah, baby.
Landed in Texas. So prior to Haiti, being in California, I got rid of all my crap. I got rid of obviously my apartment. I sold my car. Downsized all my clothes. And then when I was in Haiti, and I ended up meeting my now wife, who was doing nonprofit work too. She's from Texas, and my thought was, I'd love to be able to bring you back to California, but I have nothing there. So, and she's like, oh, that's fine. I come back to Texas. I've got a house. You know, we can settle down for a little bit and figure out what's next. And I was like looking at going to schools out of state, and it was just a lot more money. So, University of Houston. I was trying to stay in Texas.
More practical.
Yeah.
I always remember you would be in studio. You treated it like a job.
Uh-huh.
You were there 9 to 5. Like your ass was in that chair.
Oh yeah,
doing the work. Like you.
I was there 8 to 5.
Oh, sorry, 8 to 5.
Yeah.
With your history, how do you define architecture? What is it to you?
Oh shit.
You have to answer.
That's such a hard question, but a great question. I mean, I feel like the first fundamental thing you have to be able to do is you have to a structure should protect you from the elements, right? So it's got to keep the rain out. It has to respond to the local context. It has to thermally perform well. It has to be oriented right in terms of how the sun is moving. So if you can keep the water out and the moisture out, and you can keep it in a living, comfortable state for human beings, that's kind of the fundamentals of what architecture is. And then if you can, anything above that you can do I feel like is incredible. But those are the things you have to take care of first. And then you can start thinking about, okay, what does this look like? What's the character of the exterior? What's the character of the interior of the spaces? How can I use this to inspire people? How can I, make a space where people feel like the sky's the limit, so to speak, and they can do, it inspires them to do whatever they want to do in their lives. And then recently, I've been realizing that architecture is really, it's more like a conductor of an orchestra, because you have so many forces at play in architecture. It is not a one person show like it used to be.
Yeah.
You really have to manage relationships. You have to make the client happy. You have to manage their expectations. You have to work within their budget. You have to work within their schedule. You have to, all the code requirements of the local jurisdiction, you have to make sure you're compliant with that. And so all these different forces coming at the project, and some of them are contradictory in a way, right? Because to stay within a budget, but to make a building that functions and looks cool is really difficult. So managing all those relationships or all those forces at play, I think is what architecture is. Yeah. A conductor, so to speak.
Well said.
That was great. That had depth.
That was
really
very, very good. Golly. Yeah, I like that. It was just very raw, just to the core. I believe. I think you hit the nail on the head, really, with that definition. So you were in Haiti, then you ended up in Houston, and now Austin. And what brought you here?
It was the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took you a while. You volleyed, all right, well, now uproot my family, bring little Benjamin here, get Kate on board.
Yeah, Austin's great. We love it. But we were kind of on this trajectory of moving outside the U.S. again.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had 3 different options. And this was the job that I was most excited about. The other locations were more exciting, but this is the job that I was really excited about. And so, yeah, it just made sense to pull the trigger. Moving from Houston to Austin, not really that big of a deal. But I think I do think Kate was a little disappointed. She was ready to move out of the country again. But it was just that it's such an interesting job that I don't, who knows if I'll ever have an opportunity to work at a place like this again. So I had to.
Well, can you explain? Can you elaborate a little bit more? What it is you do?
Yeah. So I work for a company that is we would call ourselves a 3D technology company, but What we do is we design and manufacture robots that can 3D print structures. We also design the software that we use to go from, like when we design something like in Revit or AutoCAD or whatever program, Rhino, the software that like translates that design and like gives it to the printer in a language that the printer can understand and like actually print.
Kind of like a slicer program for 3D printing?
Yeah, actually kind of. I'm not super privy on how the software works. It is like so above my head. Like there's a lot of software engineers at the company, and when they talk about coding and all this stuff, I'm just like, okay, I believe you.
That's a weird architecture of architecture to have like a coding software.
Yeah.
Like it's already complicated enough to have like how the robots are going to work is.
Yeah. And then, okay, so we build the robots, we make the software, we design the homes. Right now, it's primarily single-family homes that we're doing. We believe that in order to solve the housing crisis, that obviously you can't do that with a single-family home. We'll have to go multifamily. We'll have to go vertical at some point, but it's a matter of just
R&D,
evolving the printer, making it bigger, taller, faster. So
the limit is 1 story now?
the limit is 1 story ish. We've done some 2-story structures, but it's the second story is all wood frame.
Okay.
But we're actually about to start a project where the client wants us to print second and third stories, so we're trying to figure out how to do it.
Is that more of an engineering problem, or is that more of just the robotics itself? Like, how do you make
Both.
Okay,
It is both. Yeah, it's both. Right.
I think one of the fundamental problems with like 3D printing the house, and if I'm not mistaken, it's concrete kind of extruded out, just like a regular plastic 3D printer, but it's concrete instead.
Yeah.
You've got a height limit for no reinforcement. So without having any rebar, there's only so high you could take just layers of concrete before that's not going to be structurally sound.
Right. There are no steel reinforced walls. Do you know?
They are. Yeah.
So as you're printing, you kind of lay in some reinforcing steel as you go. And
there's longitudinal steel throughout the building, and then like every so often there's a core, and that core gets like usually a number 5, and then it gets grouted. Yeah.
That was kind of more of a technical question that I had, like from the build side of things is, are all of these walls, because I've seen plenty of video of the printer, doing its thing, and they all look like hollow walls. Do you go back later and solid fill with high strength grout or something?
You have to insulate it, right? You have to have some thermal capacity to hold.
Yeah. That was another question, was like waterproofing, water management. This is obviously your exterior wall, so do you have some kind of admixture, like a Zypex or something that you put in the concrete to repel water? Or do you do something on the backside? Technical stuff. Sorry.
No, I love these questions. This is like, I live in this realm of thinking. So the cool thing about our wall system is there's a cavity, obviously, on the exterior wall, and that can be filled with spray foam insulation.
Okay.
And so we can really easily change the R factor of our wall by like making it narrower or making it thicker. So like if we go up north and print in a colder climate, perhaps our wall needs to get a little bit thicker. But yeah, it's like all spray foam insulation. All of our plumbing and electrical is also in the wall.
Mm-hmm. So that's something you gotta, I guess, build incrementally as you go up. You have your plumber and electrician basically on call as you ride, or on site every day, maybe that they're there.
Actually, no. They come in after the wall is
just have leave outs of where it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. In terms of waterproofing, I think like that is that has been the most challenging thing
Yeah.
because if you've seen, I mean, I know there's a lot of different designs for 3D printed walls out there, but the ones I'm working with have a scalloped profile, so it's not a flat wall, and that scalloped nature of the wall presents a lot of challenges with like how do you detail out a door and a window, because you're trying to put like a straight element up against like a round element, and it becomes a waterproofing nightmare in some cases. The cool thing is that our wall, our exterior wall, we'll put like a block filler on it and then a finish coat of paint, and that will get us below like a really, really good perm rating. So like, basically like nothing's getting through that.
Concrete, yeah.
And then, just like using a lot of liquid flashing on the door.
Windows and doors, yeah.
Windows and doors, yeah.
Hope they don't goop it up too much.
Yeah, I remember that's something I paid attention to when we went the AIA tour this last year. Was it the Zero House?
House Zero?
House Zero, yeah.
I've heard of that one.
You haven't seen it? I know. Yeah, we walked it. Yeah, and that's something that I kind of caught my attention was, window and door details and how to finish that out properly. And no, I thought it visually, I mean, it's a gorgeous house, and so I thought the details were really nice. I think when it came to terminating that wall, and it was I don't know. I think it also it's just going to improve with time, and the details I think will get better. And
yeah.
One of the things that I like, that I appreciate, and I've seen the evolution of, is it seems like it's a lot of plan-derived decisions, right? So you're using this as extruded form, and so you make these beautiful plans, and then there's an attention that was given to the wall. Like, what can the wall provide? And, like, whether that's pattern or if that's relief, color, whatever. I'm curious as to if you start going 2 and 3 stories high, what are the sectional qualities of those things? Like instead of like a bead rolling and then it's just an opening where it's just a window and then the window is going to be the entirety of the wall, and so it's just like an extrusion. Like, can you start having like a dynamic of a third, the Z-axis? Like, can you start manipulating forms to be able to be more than just a wall and what you feel in the space, but I don't know, quality of light.
So you're talking about, we have been playing around with lofting the walls, cantilevering the walls. We've printed dome structures. So not only in plan can you articulate the wall, the form of the wall, and make it look organic, but you can also start to play with that in the Z direction. So it opens up a lot more possibilities in terms of form, right?
Yeah.
Because like you're not working with as many right angles, which again makes it more difficult when you go to finish out the kitchen and the bathroom and add furniture, because furniture wants to be up against like a straight wall, right? But yeah, it opens up a lot more opportunities to just play with different forms, if that's what you're questioning.
Yeah, it's more of a poche condition where you're treating it as a 3-dimensional object instead of just living in a plane realm. You guys have like, you're killing it. You're testing the boundaries of it like daily and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and probably taking a lot of ideas behind the shed, being like, that wasn't worth the headache, and it's not solving a problem, so we're not going to do that. But I love that process. I love that iteration.
We have made a lot of mistakes. We did a lot of mock-ups early on for doors and windows, and where we were like, that's terrible. That will never work.
You're on
like,
the frontier.
That is how we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Like literally, I think we did like 20 window and door mock-ups before we feel like we had something that we could deploy in the field. But it was like tons of failure at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I guess to that point, the concrete that you use to print, it's not a concrete you can just call ready mix or anybody, is it?
No, it's
a
not.
Specialized mix.
It is a proprietary mix.
So then why concrete and not plastic? Because then we could take all this plastic, melt it down. Because I'm watching guys on YouTube that just take plastic bottles and create new strips. And then, so I'm just curious of why you ended up on concrete for the media and not something else.
Yeah.
Is it structural reasons? Like concrete's just...
Well, I think our system it has a lot of similarities to masonry construction, right? So like CMU block, people kind of understand that system. AHJs understand that. It's written into the code. And so our system isn't so different that, it's different enough to where we have to work with code officials to help them understand the physics of our system. But once you go into a different material, like you're talking about plastic, now you're talking about completely rewriting codes, creating brand new codes that have never existed before. And that is, I think, a massive undertaking. Not that it shouldn't eventually go there. And I don't know that we will be printing with concrete forever. I think we're testing different materials all the time. I don't see that side of things as much, so I can't speak to it, like what the materials are. But I think concrete, just because so many people are already building with concrete, and that was probably the easiest place to start.
Is it just from a cost perspective, probably cheaper to use a concrete than it is some kind of plastic or polymer maybe?
That I would assume so, but honestly, I'm not sure.
Do you do a lot of BIM, where you do a lot of modeling ahead of time to try to work out some of the kinks? Because I'm sure with the 3D printing, you're printing the finished product, so there's no going back.
Right.
There's no rework. One shot and you're done. So, how much modeling is done beforehand? Yeah,
we try to model everything to LOD super high, because it is so different than typical residential construction where you can leave in traditional wood framed single family residence. There's a lot of decisions you can push off to construction and make those decisions in the field. Even in terms of coordinating where electrical outlets, light switches, recessed lighting goes, because if there's a conflict with a wood stud, you can easily move that stud, or you can just move the receptacle a little bit. With our system, it feels much more in terms of the amount of coordination and BIM that we have to do up front is more like a commercial building, because all of our receptacles, all of our switches, all that stuff gets there's a void that doesn't get printed, so that electrical sleeve can slide right in. So if you miss one and you have to come back, now you're talking about core drilling through the wall, which is time consuming, laborious, and you don't want to have to do it. And then it looks like shit in the end. So the amount of you have to know where everything is going before you hit print.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of again. Coming from a builder's perspective, is man, all of these details have to be worked out beforehand before you even set up the rig in the field and get everything going. All of these details. So is it kind of structured like a commercial job in the sense that you know what the cabinets are going to be, what the selections are, and none of that changes. It is what it is, and you go. There's very little changes in the field.
Very little change in the field.
Right.
The only changes we've had changes, of course, but that's because a product is discontinued, no longer available, or it has too long of a lead time. Those are that's still happening, of course, but very minimal changes compared to regular construction.
So you dialed in, you keep toying with this material, you figure out its limitations, you make a better plan, you make a better building. Are you guys doing any post-occupancy evaluation? Or are you guys saying, all right, a year later, I'm going to go talk to somebody who's been living in this thing. What do you have any user feedback that's informing the design?
We really don't yet. We have only, let's see, we have 4 houses that are being lived in right now in Austin, East Austin, probably another 6 in East Austin. But they've only been lived in for maybe a year, so we don't have tons of that data yet. We need that data.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to like getting that feedback, but we're so young and so new that we haven't had enough time hasn't passed.
Yeah.
So,
How long have y'all been around?
I think like 5 years tops.
What's the scale on this? How do you? When's the drop ship? It's that, hey baby, we're doing 10,000 of these a month. Like when is what is the all right? We've got it. We've got the prototype. Let's hit print. Like when is that? Is there a target date? Is there like a moment of adoption?
Yeah, it's a tough one because like. We want to like mass produce homes because we believe that this form of construction will help us build quicker, more cheaply, more sustainably. But then there's also like we do care about design and aesthetics, so it's like we don't want to copy paste too many times. We want to do that a little bit so that we can get to a place of like we have a product that is profitable, but we're always going to be like designing new stuff, like new floor plans. So yeah, and we're always going to be designing new robots that probably like increase our print bed, can go more vertical. And when that happens, that opens up just so many other opportunities. So I think like the thought is with our current printer system that we kind of develop a catalog of homes that can be replicated by that thing, and that thing never goes away, but we continue to evolve it, and then the next printer has its own catalog of structures that can be printed, and we just keep going and going and going.
Well, y'all are already planning whole communities, right? I mean, is that something we can talk about?
Yeah, so we have a community in North Austin currently underway. We have a couple more in design. We have a community down in Mexico in design.
What's your day to day? I mean, you started at this company so early. So, I mean, how much of your time is actually designing? Or are you managing people? Are you essentially a manager nowadays where you're just making sure that people are facilitating the idea, or are you sitting back and figuring out these hard details?
It kind of depends on the day. Recently, I've been living in schematic design world.
All right.
Like developing.
Yeah, I love that.
Actually developing floor plans, and that's been a lot of fun.
Before you have to figure out how you're going to waterproof it, you're just addressing
Like I would say the first 6 months I was in the weeds of figuring out details like door, window, top of wall to roof connection, all the waterproofing stuff. Focused on that, and then once we got the set of details that worked and looked good, then I started to manage projects more. And now that like our big communities are kind of rolling and our printers are doing a good job, I'm kind of like able to pull off of that from the construction administration side of things, and I'm able to like jump back into schematic design.
You're wearing a lot of hats.
Wearing tons of hats. That's the hardest thing, is that there's so much uncertainty, so much ambiguity, like on the day to day. You just never know what's going to come up. Sometimes you have to put out some fires and you don't get this done. And so you have to shuffle a lot throughout your day.
What do you do for fun outside of work?
What do I do for fun? I'm trying to like keep my mind and body in shape these days, like, which is really hard.
Sure.
But play a little tennis. Keep a 7-year-old alive. There's not tons of free time, but I do really love driving out to hill country and just like enjoying the scenery, like doing a little wine tasting,
Living the life.
kind of.
More than in Houston, yeah. Like, when are you going to go to Freeport? Like,
Better than Haiti.
It is.
There you go. Cool, man. All right, well, appreciate having you on, man. It was good talks. I feel like we got through a lot.
We'll definitely have to get you back on. I mean, there's so much. I mean, especially as the technology develops and, we're able to do bigger and better things. I think, we'll definitely have to get you back on and talk about some of those if you're able to.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah. Appreciate your time. And, I look forward to getting you back on.
Cool.
Thanks,
guys. That's fun.